Welcome back to our Decision 2014 edition of Politics Tonight. Still joined by Chicago Tribune columnist Eric Zorn, Tribune editorial board member Kristen McQuarrie. Let me take a look at your predictions. Now, Eric, you I think you tipped your hat a little bit before the break, which there's been a commercial break in between. You may have rethought it. But taking a look at the governor's race, do you stand by your prediction?
I do. I went back and forth during the commercial break, but I've come back to predicting a narrow victory for Bruce Rauner, yes.
Kristen?
Well, I hate to point out to Eric that the last time we did this, I was right. I think about 95% of my predictions.
I forgot about that.
I'm sure you did. Because of the Libertarian candidate on the ballot and some late help he's getting from the trade unions, I actually would predict Quinn in a squeaker, maybe by 1 or 2 percentage points, but I think the Libertarian is a real danger to Bruce Rauner at this point.
And I'm going to, Eric, I'm going to let you respond to that because I'm going to go with Kristen, not so much on the prediction of the result, but I do think that Chad Grimm, the Libertarian, makes the difference here. There's no Green Party candidate to take away from Quinn. There is a Libertarian to take away from Rauner.
I think that's right. I think that Chad Grimm's votes will come from Bruce Rauner. I'm not sure what the social conservatives are going to do. We talked before the break about what's going to make a difference here, and I'm wondering about the motivation of social conservatives because they really don't have a candidate in this race. Bruce Rauner is professedly a social moderate. He's pro-choice. He says he's okay now with gay marriage. Do those social conservatives, they just shrug their shoulders, stay home and say, what does it matter?
Well, is that the Chad Grimm vote? I mean, or is this lesser of two evils for them between the two major candidates?
Well, that's generally when people vote in these elections. A lot of them, it's a lesser of two evils. So I still think that the factor I talked about before, all the money that Rauner's put into this, and it's a replay of 2010, but you've got more money on the Republican side and a better ground game. So,
and do either of you think that the lieutenant governor candidates in this race, Paul Vallas, Evelyn Sanguinetti, do either of them make a difference?
Probably not. I don't think lieutenant governor candidates ever make much of a difference. Obviously, they had a debate the other night on Channel 11. Evelyn Sanguinetti didn't even show up. She's clearly not of the caliber of Paul Vallas, but they can't really make an issue out of this because last time around, Governor Quinn chose Sheila Simon, whose political experience was even thinner than Evelyn Sanguinetti. So she just had the famous last name. So that hasn't played into any of the advertising that I've seen, and none of the conversations I've had with people have they brought that up.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other races. Kristen, I'll come to you since you're always right. Let's take a look at the financial financial roles here. Treasurer Tom Cross, Mike Frerichs. Who gets the edge?
This is going to be probably one of the closest statewide races, and if there is an upset, it will be here. Mike Frerichs is a state senator from Champaign. He has some great ads on. I would give the edge in this race to Tom Cross. He was former Republican House leader, only because he has a little more name recognition than Mike Frerichs does. So I would give the edge in this race to Tom Cross.
I disagree. I think this is fundamentally a blue state, and that any Republican candidate on the statewide ballot has to make up for that essential difference in this state. And I don't think either of these candidates are well known enough by most of the voters. I think this is going to go to Frerichs.
All right.
For that reason only.
Okay, so we have a split there. Controller, Judy Bartopinka, Sheila Simon. Eric?
I think that Judy Bartopinka is going to hold on to this. She is well known and she's trusted as a straight shooter. I know there's been some issues with some allegations. She tried to clout her son into law school, but I think Judy's going to win that.
Yeah, Kristen, Sheila's got a great name, certainly in the Simon name behind her for Democrats, but then again, you have to want to fire Judy Bartopinka, right?
You do. I mean, Judy Bartopinka is hands down one of the most popular politicians in the state. She has continued with ads this election cycle, showing her being frugal and shopping at garage sales. And not only is she going to win, she's going to blow Sheila Simon out of the water. I really do think that's going to happen.
All right. Secretary of State, does anybody think Jesse White's not winning?
Kristen, you can take the. I can't even tell you it's challenging Jesse White.
Attorney General, anybody think Lisa Madigan's not winning? We're moving beyond it. Let's go to the U.S. Senate race, and I guess I can do the same thing. Do either of you think Jim Oberweis pulls off an upset?
Kristen,
I don't.
Okay, I think everybody's in agreement on that. I'm with you. Let's go to the national picture while we have a couple of moments, because one of the really critical issues here is, will the Republicans take control of the Senate? Kristen, they need 6 seats to do it. Can they? Well, they can, certainly.
It's going to be really tough. I mean, I would say if you ask me today, yes, they will get the 6th. The Republicans are pulling ahead in a lot of the tight races around the country, but only slightly, only by 1 or 2 percentage points. But I do think there's a wave among voters that Washington is broken, and I think that is going to help Republicans. I do think they will take over the Senate.
I think this is where anti-Obama sentiment and some of this Ebola fear is going to come into play. And I would agree with Kristen, except that just for the sake of sport, I'm going to disagree and say that the Democrats are going to narrowly hang on to the Senate.
By the way, very quickly, Kansas is an interesting one to watch, right? Republican Pat Roberts up against an independent who says he won't caucus with either side, which means if that's the deciding state, we won't know what happens with the Senate.
Well, Kansas, North Carolina, Vermont, a lot of these places are very interesting races. Iowa, they say that how Iowa goes, the nation's going to go. So, boy, it's going to be a very interesting night next Tuesday.
All right. And by the way, one final point. States like Louisiana, Georgia, they have runoffs, so we might not even know who controls the Senate until January of next year with some of those runoffs. Eric Zorn, Kristen McQuarrie, as always, great to get you. What a great week to have you guys here to get your pulse on what's going on. We're going to revisit your predictions next week. Thanks for joining me. And when we come back, some of the hottest congressional races in the country going on right here in Illinois. I'll tell you what to watch for after these words.